Other instructors have asked me how to tell if something is plagiarized and what to do about it. Here's the method I've developed over the years. It helps me keep it simple and reduce conflicts. It requires no special equipment. It's just a 3-step method and a little paperwork. See if you can pick out the likely cheaters in this bunch. Some of them must be. The studies say somewhere between 50 and 93% will cheat on occasions. You can't pick them out. There's no demographic that predicts this. It's not necessarily the athletes or the males or the youngsters. It's not even the academically challenged. In my experience, any race, any major, any age, either sex, and even honor students have turned to plagiarism. Don't allow yourself to profile some students as too good to cheat. Some of them need integrity training too. HCC wanted to send a message that the institution takes integrity very seriously. Honest students tell us in surveys that they very much want us to do that. It reduces the temptation for them to cheat too. So this paragraph was added to our policy. It says the teacher decides how to handle the first incident, but the second offense, even if it's in another class, a later semester, will draw a response from academic affairs, an institutional response. This policy is working well. Don't be discouraged. I know when we became teachers, we didn't think we were signing up for this. We had something more like this in mind. But while we teach what we're teaching, we have to teach and enforce academic integrity too. If we do this, we'll discourage the cheaters and reward the students who show integrity. We'll get less plagiarism turned in, and we'll have more time and emotional energy to teach what we love. But choose your battles wisely. Not everything is cheating. Some of it is just poor documentation. Cheating involves intent. It's not just using someone else's ideas, which is required in scholarship, but even failing to document them properly. But it's trying to pass others' ideas off as one's own. We'll discuss what that means in a minute, but keep in mind that some errors are just teachable moments. Here's the right way to document someone else's ideas. If it's the words that a student borrows, she should put them in quotation marks. Or if it's in paraphrase, she doesn't need the quotes, but she still needs to cite the idea where it occurs in the paper and to list it at the end, the source where that citation came from. If a student misses any of these requirements, it's poor scholarship and an opportunity to learn to do it right. If the student misses all 3 of these requirements, it's terrible scholarship, and it's also probably cheating, but not necessarily. Sometimes a student indicates in a different way that an idea is not her own. Look for a disclaimer like one of these, any hint that a student is not trying to claim the idea or the words, because this changes a confrontational situation into an opportunity to teach. All these examples I would read as honest admissions that the idea was borrowed, and therefore not cheating. References to vague authorities critics describe as, is known as, references to dictionaries, is defined as, or other sources like that, and impressions gained from reading, I read somewhere. All of these I would call disclaimers. Some students are so tone deaf they have no idea how easy it is to detect their borrowed language. I always sort of thought conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native view of resolution, and so on. This kind is easy to detect. But look for some kind of disclaimer, like, as some poet said, or even an uncited link later in the work cited that actually contains the quote. A student trying to cover her tracks will not paste the source at the end. Remember, if there's evidence that the student is not trying to pass the stuff off as her own, jump on the opportunity to avoid making an unpleasant ethics allegation and to teach instead the right way to do scholarship. Tell them, you're not showing off your skills. Always do this. Your instructors will love you for it. Here's the 3-step method I've found useful. You probably won't need the 3rd step. First of all, your ear will alert you when something changes. An idea that seems over the student's head, a change in the tone, some highfalutin language, pay attention to that. Make a note of it. And step 2, Google it. If it's borrowed, this will usually turn it up after a few tries, sometimes on the first try. Google is the only technical tool you'll probably need. In a bit, we'll look at an example. Then, if you want, you can look at some other practice examples we made available somewhere near this video. 3, if Google doesn't find it, but your ear's still telling you it's not that student's work, ask the student in for an interview about the paper. That has cleared the air many times for me. First, your ear. Pause this video and read this over. Jot down any ideas that seem to be more insightful than the general discussion here, or phrases that don't match the overall style. When you're ready, continue the video, but pause it now. Okay, what did you find? I perked up my ears at "his own life lacks meaning and intimacy," and the rest of the discussion in that paragraph also sounded of a lot higher level of insight than some of the statements that were made, all of the statements that were made in the beginning here. There is no such thing as first-person omniscient point of view, normally. I also sort of was snagged by smart, compassionate man. Listening to others helps him to see them better than he could see with his eyes. Takes the time to truly listen to others, and he sees things differently. All these things sort of attracted my attention as something that didn't sound like it was coming from the same student. But we need evidence, something more than my impressions. Let's try Google to find the source and to document the plagiary. Narrow your search by the author's last name, a keyword from the title, and some key words from the student's writing that you think might turn up the evidence. I tried Carver Cathedral Smart Compassionate, and it worked, but I didn't notice it because I didn't look close enough. They're changing the word smart to, or they changed the word insightful to smart threw the result down further in the list, and I missed it. I wasted some time. I went to the other to search for the other phrase. I tried the keywords Carver Cathedral, meaning intimacy, which I thought was an attractive thing to look for. This worked too, but unfortunately I missed it again by not looking closely enough. Sometimes a slight change in the search strategy makes a difference. This time I tried Carver Cathedral and the phrase meaning and intimacy with the conjunction and with quotation marks around it to cause the search engine to limit it to hits that use that exact phrase. The result of this was a whopping success. Every one of these is a hit. Life lacks meaning and intimacy, and see how it changes as a result. Lacks meaning and intimacy, see how it changes, lacks meaning and intimacy. And I found other language in these also that matched what my student had pretended to write. This one, this preview was intentionally blurred in spots. Sign up to view the full document. I don't have to do that because Romper 20 is one of those others on the list who ripped off the entire paper, and so all I had to do was print rompers. Use a simple text search to find where in the essay it exists. Use print preview to find out what page you need to print to document it. Print that page, mark it up. I also wanted to document the other place I found that the student had borrowed ideas. So I Googled Carver Cathedral Compassionate, leaving out the word smart because compassionate is the word that I really tripped on anyway. I scored with this, printed one of the sources, and marked it up as evidence. Take a little time to look at this, pause it if you need to, and see how the student altered the phrasing, hoping to disguise the theft. There's no disclaimer, no quotation marks in the student's paper, which I've reproduced right here, and it looks like cheating. There's no citation, However, before you call it cheating, check to make sure there isn't some place in the paper where the students put in a link or some kind of a source listing that actually does contain that text or those ideas. Remember, a cheater covers his tracks. He doesn't create a paper trail on purpose. If I found the quote or even the ideas in one of these two poorly cited sources, then even if the source is lousy, which these are, and the documentation is even lousier, something like this would, in my opinion, indicate a weak effort to acknowledge the source. I would give the paper a low grade for documentation skills and help the student learn how to do it right in a revision. But if it really is an unlisted source and there is no disclaimer and no kind of anything, it's cheating. Document it. Sometimes, you may have to try 2 or 3 different searches, different word combinations, put the exact phrases in quotes, take them out of the quotes, get rid of the connective tissue in order to find it. And sometimes you just aren't going to find it at all. Now, if you don't find it and you're still suspicious about it, remember it won't show up online if the student's mom or spouse or roommate did the work. If Google fails and you're still suspicious, it's time for step 3, the interview. Ask the student in and don't tell them why. Then when he's there, tell him you had to defend your master's thesis when you finished your graduate work, and he's going to have to defend this paper. Mention some ideas from the paper and ask him to elaborate on them. Also, sit him down in a quiet place, take away his phone, give him a piece of paper and a pencil, and ask him to summarize what was in the paper. Tell him not the exact words, just the ideas as well as you can remember. Now he's going to ask, can I go to lunch first? The answer is politely, no. Can I see my paper first? No. It's been a whole week. I can't remember it now. Well, I can, and I read it a week ago. But just do the best you can. Don't worry if it's not the exact words. Just tell me what you said in your paper. You'd be amazed how often this will yield over a space of 15 minutes about 3 very uninformative sentences. I say that student's busted. However, if even this doesn't seem conclusive, just give up. It's not worth a possible false accusation of cheating and an irreparable student-teacher relationship. Thank him, shrug and say good work, and let it go. Who knows, maybe you're wrong and he's telling the truth. If so, you avoided a conflict. If not, he'll probably hesitate to cheat the next time, and other students will learn about it. They talk to each other, and they'll know you tried. The next step, the last step, actually it's step 4 out of 3, so I lied, is to document the plagiarism if it is plagiarism. So that in case of a challenge, your boss will have the information to sustain your judgment. Mark up the essay and the corresponding parts of the source printouts. Complete a documentation form. We have a template you can adapt to match your own policies, or you can create your own form. Sign it, date it, and indicate the recipients besides the student. And those would be the Vice President of Academic Affairs and the student's advisor. Assemble these documents and make 3 copies. You keep the original. It makes a student nervous. Give the student a copy and where the plagiarism form is hidden behind the front page of the paper, just out of kindness if nothing else. The other 2 with the plagiarism form on the front, address and send to the Academic Affairs Office and to the student's advisor. And I guess this is step 5 out of 3. Have the student come in to discuss the whole thing with you. Explain the consequences of what's just happened and of any further violations that you might get, and get the student's firm commitment to avoid it in the future. Also, be sure to offer your help with any source documentation or ethical questions that the student might have. And always try to model responsible documentation in your own presentations, even when it seems like a waste of time, because it's not. It's a very good habit to get into, and students will notice the violations. Let me know if you have any questions or need any sample documents to edit for your own use. And thank you for listening.